coming into the historical period. Here now we begin to see new schools of thought emerging. So there are many schools of thought, but two important schools of thought emerge out of this. One of the schools of Brihaspati, who was the guru of the Devas. And the other is the school of Shukra, who was the guru of the Asuras. Now I want to make it very clear right up front that the idea of the Devas and the Asuras being good and bad is actually a much later idea. The original idea of the Devas and the Asuras is more like a yin and yang idea. They're the gods and the anti-gods, and they are seen as being somewhat in a tension, yes, but they both need each other. So for example, in the Samudra Manthan, both of them have to come to do the Samudra Manthan. So please don't confuse it with later ideas of good and bad. The Asuras and the Devas are both different shades of grey, let's say. And here, you have the school of Shukra, which is the Asuric school, which is essentially making the case of Dandaniti. What is Dandaniti? Where they make the thing that the way to govern is effectively to create a set of sensible rules and to enforce those rules. That is the key to good governance, Dandaniti. That's the Shukra school, the Asuric school. And then there is the Brihaspati school, which agrees that Dandaniti is needed, but it states that you also need policy, particularly economic policy, Varta. So there is this debate that these two schools are having coming into the early historical period. Unfortunately, there is a problem that while we know from other texts that this debate was there, we do not have any uncorrupted versions of either the Shukra Nitisara or of the Brihaspati Sutra. So we have to guess at what was in these texts from other texts. There is no good copy of the Brihaspati Sutra. It only survives as a fragment. The only thing I found was an English translation by Dr. F.W. Thomas, published in 1921, but it's just a fragment, and it doesn't give any meaningful sense of the wider document or the underlying philosophy of governance. So, and the same problem is there with Shukra Niti Sara, which survives as a late medieval abridgment. There is an English translation by Professor Binoy Sarkar, published in 1913. Unlike the other text, it is not a fragment, so even the abridged version is a substantial text. But we can tell that it is a medieval abridgment, and in fact, it's very corrupted. So it's got things like, for example, it mentions gunpowder, it mentions what is possibly a gun, and all of these things clearly did not exist in the late Iron Age. So I don't think we should take them too seriously. And you also have Manusmriti, who is also another of the schools of the early period. And again, we have a later version of the text from somewhere in 3rd, 4th century AD. So again, we have no idea what these texts originally meant, other than other texts mention that this is what their arguments were.